Hi, and well done on making it to another great lesson. In this video, we will talk about commitment and consistency and how to make them part of your persuasion toolkit. You may have noticed that backing out of promises or deals always brings about a sense of unpleasantness and dread. This is because people are habitual beings and like to be consistent. Simply put, consistency refers to the fact that people like to act in line with the things they have already said or done. If they do not, that creates a sensation in the mind psychologists call cognitive dissonance. When actions and attitudes or opinions don't match, it creates the truly unpleasant feeling of being a hypocrite. Therefore, people try hard to avoid entering cognitive dissonance by adjusting their behaviors and matching them to attitudes and actions as they go along. Additional pressure to be consistent comes also from the fact that society largely views inconsistency as an undesirable trait, and often associates it with indecisiveness and even intellectual weakness. One way to tap into this persuasion resource is to attempt to identify and then ask for insignificant commitments the other person can make. There is tons of research in social psychology that clearly identifies the success of this strategy. For example, having a group of students write speeches describing the dangers of AIDS and the importance of condom use, and then recite them in front of their peers increased the likelihood of these students to use condoms in the future. So, the students had already made a commitment, both personally when writing the speeches and publicly when presenting them, and they needed to adjust their behavior accordingly. This worked even better if they were also asked to list any occasions when they had failed to use protection that elevated their need to rectify the inconsistent behavior. There is another simple force at work here, and it is a bit subtle. The students were asked to write the speech. Writing has magical powers, as it turns out. Once a person agrees to certain arrangements and puts it on paper, then the pressures of commitment become this much more real and palpable. In fact, there is a super effective technique door-to-door salespeople employ to minimize order cancellations based on this principle. When there is an order that needs to be filled out, they ask the customers to write down the sales agreement rather than doing it themselves. This reduces the number of cancellations drastically. We can think about this in even simpler terms, and it would still be equally effective. For example, a medical center that is trying to reduce the number of missed appointments needs only to ask people to commit to canceling the appointment beforehand, and they will achieve their goal. Asking people, "Will you please phone in if you need to cancel?" and having them say yes instead of telling them, "Please let us know," creates an arrangement, and people, by and large, do not break those. Now, the commitment principle is, of course, very well known to the business world as well. Savvy managers and strategists use it widely in their marketing campaigns. It is referred to as the foot in the door technique. For example, the strategy can be to get a client to sign up for a full-line distribution by first getting them to agree only to a small order. The idea here is that both time and effort have been put into creating the arrangement and establishing the partnership, and it is now only fitting that this partnership start to grow. Does that make sense? Awesome. So, the takeaway from this really is that the individual who's looking to use the commitment principle to get their ideas across is looking for a small initial commitment. In an ideal world, this commitment would be made voluntarily. The person who is agreeing to it would be actively engaged in the process, and the deal would be sealed in writing. But even in suboptimal situations, where not all of the above are present, the principle still holds strong and is very effective. Okay, we will end this lesson here. Join us in the next video, where we will be talking about social proof, or how and why people are influenced by peers when making a decision. Thanks for watching.